One or two things need to happen for the Golden State Warriors. Steve Kerr needs to have some dignity and resign because he has no control of the situation that he's in right now. He hasn't had control since last year. After losing Mike Brown, their defense has fallen apart, and year by year, it's getting worse and worse. And Kenny Atkinson, pretty sure he's an offensive coordinator of sorts. He's never been some kind of defensive coordinator, somebody who controls the defense. And clearly, if he is doing that, he's not doing a good job. The Warriors are terrible on the defensive end of the floor because the formations are messed up, their coverage is messed up, their nuances are not there, and on top of that, the rotations, the combination of players that are being put out on the floor is a complete and utter mess. It's complete and utter nonsense, and Steve Kerr just doesn't know how to play combinations. He thinks that the game of basketball is positionless, and he proved that in FIBA competition when he decided to play Mikal Bridges at the center spot. So he needs to do what's right, realize that he's completely lost, and just let it go. It's okay. You've won 4 championships. The Warriors have an opportunity to still win more, but they're not going to be able to do it without Mike Brown and just with Steve Kerr, left to his own devices. The Warriors can still win a title this season, but as long as this guy is at the top, making completely nonsensical decisions game after game after game, it's just not going to happen. The other option is for Mike Dunleavy to be able to recognize all of this, do the right thing, and let Steve Kerr walk. Let him go. You're clearly not going to re-sign him after the debacle of a season that they're having now. There's no good reason for it. Steve is horrendous at developing young talent, and the Warriors have a ton of young talent. Steve Kerr came into the Warriors situation that was a team full of veterans. There were no young players to develop. Everybody was already developed. Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Andrew Bogut, Andre Iguodala, Sean Livingston. Even Harrison Barnes was in year 3. So there really was not a whole lot of developing to do. Everybody was seasoned and ready to go. Leandro Barbosa, like all the guys that they had, were ready to go. He came into a situation where it was a team primed to compete for a championship. And now he's got Kuminga, he's got Moody, he's got Potts, he's got Trace Jackson Davis. And he just has no idea how to maximize those talents, how to give them confidence, give them the right amount of playing time, give them the right combination of players to play alongside. He's no capability of any of that. And Mike Dunleavy, man, I don't know if it's him or if it's the group of scouters, whatever the case may be. He drafted 2 absolute steals with the draft positions that they had. With the 19th pick, they picked Potts, who's completely ready for the NBA on both ends of the floor. And he's just only going to keep rising and rising and rising and get better and better and better as his career goes. And then you have Trace Jackson Davis with the 57th overall pick. The steal of the draft. Not even close. This guy is a walking double-double machine. And he is a shot blocker. He is a paint protector. And the Warriors haven't had a piece like this since Andrew Bogut. And Trace Jackson Davis is better than Andrew Bogut on the offensive end of the floor. So Mike Dunleavy, you're cooked. But unfortunately, because Steve Kerr is at the top of this situation, there is such a thing as the disease of more. Mike Dunleavy has a lot to do this season if you want to contend for a championship right now. Because Steph Curry is 35 and he's almost 36 and he's not getting any younger. He's already showing slow signs of declining a little bit. He's not the same caliber of player even just a few months ago in the playoffs. He hasn't been the same. Now I can come up with a lot of different reasons for why that is, but for the purpose of this video, Mike Dunleavy literally said that he's all in on trying to win a championship now. And he has given Steve Kerr amazing, incredible depth. They are 12, 13 deep, literally. They truly are. Kojo, Corey Joseph, is like their 13th man. And he is a second string point guard on most teams. But on this team, he's third string and even possibly fourth string because of the presence of Potts. That's how deep they are. But there is such a thing as the disease of more. The Warriors have no legitimate closing stretch four power forward. A guy who can actually play the power forward position in a powerful way and not in a limited way because that's all you have. Andrew Wiggins is the perfect example. He is a powerful POA at the wing spot. But at the 4, He's not a good rebounder. He's 210 pounds. It's just not what he does. Same thing with Kuminga. He's a lesser version of Andrew Wiggins at the power forward spot. But Steve Kerr has played him at the power forward spot his entire career. I mean, talk about gross misuse of your player. You're playing your player at an entirely incorrect position. And the Warriors, at the end of the day, this is why I was frustrated when they let go of Rudy Gay in the preseason, because he's the only guy that could actually close a game as a power forward. They have Dario Saric, but they keep playing him as center, which is another malpractice. On top of that, even if you play him at the 4, he's going to get hunted if you close with him down the stretch of a game. The other team is going to hunt him because he cannot guard the other team's best player, not even close. So the Warriors have a redundancy problem, and Mike Dunleavy needs to take care of that probably well before the trade deadline. You can't wait for the trade deadline. This is a thing that the team has been missing, and Steve Kerr has an obsession of going too small. So if that's the case, if you're going to keep him, you got to make a trade right now. You have Moody, you have Potts, you have CP3, you have GP2, you have Curry. How many guys, 6'4" or under, do you have that this clown coach is going to continue to put out there on the floor at the same time and compromise your defense? It's going to continue to happen. So he needs to make that decision. Look at the Knicks. They made a trade a month and a half before the deadline. Look at the Clippers. They made a trade for James Harden practically at the beginning of the year. Nobody said that you have to make a trade right at the trade deadline. It doesn't have to be last minute. You can immediately identify the problem that your team has and make a move quick so that you can get your chemistry and all these things in order well before the playoffs. But all of that aside, you've got to realize that Steve Kerr has done the complete opposite of maximizing the potential rotations that you could play, the potential combinations that you could play. To close a game, you cannot play Curry and Chris Paul at the same time. Not because they're bad defenders, but because when you combine them, you have 2 point guards on the floor at the same time. One of them has to guard the other team's best player at some point, and that's almost always going to be Steph Curry. Steph Curry's 6'2". He's listed as 6'2", and you're forcing him to guard like Anthony Edwards, Devin Booker, whoever. Kawhi Leonard, James Harden. Like, this shouldn't be happening. He's 36 years old. As he gets older in age, you're supposed to protect him more. Build a team where he's surrounded by great defenders. If you want to be a serious team, that's what you're supposed to do. But Steve Kerr doesn't seem to understand or care about that. Not only that, Steph Curry is your point guard. You put him next to Chris Paul. Now Steph Curry's off the ball. What are you doing? This is beyond disrespectful. Now you've turned this into a Chris Paul team. Not only that, you brought in Chris Paul and you're playing motion more than the pick and roll. The pick and roll is where Chris Paul has always thrived. He's one of the greatest pick and roll players of all time. But so is Steph Curry. But that aside, you're not using Chris Paul to his max capability. You've played him a chunk of the season with Dario Saric, who's not a roller, he's a popper. Only up until recently did Steve Kerr started playing Trace Jackson-Davis, who I've been begging for them to put into the rotation since the beginning of the season, because he's their best defender in the paint area. I think everybody can see that with a certain level of clarity at this point. Look, man, no matter how you slice it, Steve Kerr is sabotaging the potential of the Warriors by playing these nonsensical combinations, putting Saric at the 5, the most important defensive position in the game of basketball, a guy who cannot defend the paint whatsoever. The guy gets weaker the closer the opposing player gets to the rim. And that makes Dario look bad. That's not his role. That's not what he's good at. So why would you put him in that position when you have Trace sitting right there and the numbers and the eye test prove that when you play Trace and Dario together, they're much better. And then that automatically solves the Kuminga situation because you can put him at the 3 now instead of putting him at the 4. He is a terrible rebounder. Why would you put a terrible rebounder at the second most important rebounding position in the game of basketball at power forward? Do you guys see how backwards this is? Now I want to go over this post-game interview real quick and expose Steve Kerr for the charlatan that he is. Let's take a listen.
What was the reasoning behind the change in the starting lineup, bringing in Trace and CP?
Yeah, we're looking for a boost defensively. We the last couple weeks with that starting group, the defensive numbers really weren't great. I liked the energy shift that we got from it, a couple weeks ago, but defensively that lineup wasn't holding up. So we were looking for better defense from the start, and wanted to get Steph more involved as well. And we felt like getting Chris on the floor would, maybe unlock Steph a little bit, but.
Are you freaking serious? Okay, You want to bring in Trace into the starting lineup because it makes your defense better. Makes sense. Been begging for it since game one, like I said. But you destroyed the idea of good defense by bringing in Chris Paul simultaneously into the starting lineup. You cannot play Steph Curry and Chris Paul at the same time and expect the defense to be good. One of them has to play secondary POA. How does that make sense? And then you put Klay next to them, who at this point in his career is actually a bad defender. Now you have Chris Paul, who is 6 foot, tiny even at the point guard spot. And then you have 6'2" Steph Curry, 36-year-old at shooting guard. And then you have a compromised Klay at small forward. Sometimes Klay interchanges between the small forward and the power forward. You put Klay Thompson at power forward and think that that's okay. You're out of your mind. Klay Thompson is a bad rebounder at shooting guard. He rebounds less than Steph Curry and Chris Paul for his career. I mean, come on. Common sense. He has no common sense. Steve Kerr has no common sense. He talks about wanting better defense, and the first 3 players on the floor cannot defend. If you at the very least put Andrew Wiggins at the 3, at least you have a POA. Klay in there, you have no POA, and you don't have a secondary POA. Who do you expect to stop? And then again, you have Kuminga playing the power forward position. He's playing power forward and playing POA at the same time. What? And think about this. They're going up against Luka and the Mavericks. I mean, let's take a quick look at the freaking box score right now. Luka Doncic, 39 points, 8 rebounds, 10 assists on 14 of 29 shooting, 5 of 13 from the three-point line. You got Dante Exum, who shot 8 of 12, 3 of 5 from the three-point line, 5 assists, 19 points. You got Hardy, who shot 4 of 8 from the field, 9 points. Hardaway, 5 of 12 from the field, 16 points. You got Josh Green with 6 of 8 from the floor, 3 of 4 from the three-point line, 18 points. Like the Warriors can't stop anybody. Everybody and anybody was food. Okay, so you have a systemic failure of a starting unit from 1 through 4, and then you have one guy who's good on defense at the center spot. That's not going to play good defense. Are you out of your mind? Let me try to calm down, man. It's just, when you think about this from a logical standpoint, how can an NBA coach who's claimed to be one of the best coaches ever at this point of his career be doing nonsensical things like this? How can he get away with this? How is the front office letting him get away with this? How is Mike Dunleavy letting him get away with this? How is the coaching staff letting him get away with this? Why are the players okay with this nonsensical game plan? That's not a defensive unit. CP at the 1, Curry at the 2, Klay at the 3, Kuminga at the 4. That's a systemic failure. You already lost the game the moment you did that. And the pick and roll coverage. Don't even get me started on the pick and roll coverage. My God, man. Let's just continue on with this press conference where Steve Kerr continually exposes himself with his logic.
You know, the defense struggled all night. I mean, they scored 132 points, and we just couldn't stop them. Offensively, we were fine. You know, you score 122, that should be enough. Took care of the ball, you know, rebounded pretty well, and but we just couldn't get stops. So it's hard to win in this league, especially in the modern NBA. You can't get stops because everybody can score them.
Okay. So you know that, and you know you need stops. And yet you've been playing Chris Paul and Steph Curry together the whole damn season. Make it make sense. And then you put Klay next to him. Make it make sense. You cannot play that combination whatsoever to start a game or to close a game. Especially if you're playing a powerful offensive team like the Mavs, an offensively powerful player like Luka, you need switchability. Where is the switchability there? Who's going to switch? Who's going to guard the wing? 6'2" Steph Curry getting out on the wing, guarding 6'8" players, 6'7" players. Klay Thompson, slow-footed. He can't get out to anybody. He can't stop anybody in the ISO. Jonathan Kuminga is on Luka Doncic. He cannot stop him at all. What are we doing? You recognize that you have to play better defense, but you're not putting out capable defenders out there, but you have a roster full of defenders. Guys who can defend. Potts can defend. GP2, who is back, can defend. Moody can defend. GP2 played 9 minutes. You want better defense? Play better combinations. It is that simple. And Steve Kerr is not doing it. He recognizes that they need to get stops. They need to improve on defense. But he continues to not realize that the combination of players that he puts on the floor are incapable of defending.
And how hard is it to try and contain Luka, being that he was able to burn some double teams over the course of the game? I mean, you got to kind of pick your poison there. So how do you decide whether to double team or not?
Yeah, we tried to mix it up on him. We single covered him, we switched, we hit him. So we tried a lot of different things. But he's a brilliant player, had a phenomenal game. I thought the mistakes we made defensively in the first half, especially, were on our switches. We weren't communicating, and we had some good stretches where we were getting stops, and our switches were good, and then our communication.
Your switches and your communication and your ability to defend on the pick and roll changed when your personnel was different. GP2 got into the game and instantly stopped Luka dead in his tracks and blocked his shot, and yet he only played 9 minutes. So explain that to me. You had Andrew Wiggins coming off the bench playing better defense than anybody that you started outside of Trace. Correct me if I'm wrong, but was it not Andrew Wiggins playing the POA, playing the small forward position 2 years ago in the playoffs? Is he not the guy who did the job against Luka? And yet for the majority of this game, you had Kuminga on him. Even when Andrew Wiggins and Kuminga were on the floor at the same time, you had Kuminga guarding Luka. Please explain the logic. What are you doing? How do you not start Andrew Wiggins for this game? How do you not have Andrew Wiggins guarding Luka for the majority of this game? And you talk about switching, but clearly the switches are not working. Luka, as good as Trace is and as good of a job that he did, he wasn't stopping Luka. That's fine. So why didn't you mix it up? Why didn't you put Wiggins or GP2 on Luka at all junctures of the game and prevent the switches from happening? Have you ever heard of a hedge? Because Luka is a crafty guy. He's not a speedy guy. He's not just going to blow by somebody on the pick and roll. He's going to wait for the switch to happen. But if Trace hedges, and if you have an athletic guy who will fight over it, like a Wiggins, like a GP2, then you can hedge it and have the players that are guarding Luka recover back on him. I didn't see the Warriors do this one freaking time. Then you talk about the players look confused out there. Well, why are they confused? Did you come into this game with a specific game plan to make sure that the players knew exactly what to do in that situation? Clearly, they weren't ready. Clearly, they were confused because you didn't have them prepared. How about some self-accountability? How about saying, I didn't have these guys ready to play. I got to take this upon myself and say that defensively we've completely failed, and that's on me. Where's that? Of course it isn't that. It's the players' fault because they weren't communicating. What are you talking about, man?
Broke down. We started getting 2 on the ball, and then he, that's where he picked us apart. So he was fantastic tonight.
Just, I guess, kind of the way you're talking about this game. I mean, it seems kind of simple to ask, but is this the type of night you really missed Draymond?
Yeah, but I mean, he's not here, so
that's a stupid question. Why would you ask
there's
that
no
question?
Reason to dwell on that.
Do you feel like right now you have a group of guys, a group of 5 guys that you could throw out there and just feel really, really confident in them? And
well, I think first of all, I love the guys on this team. We have a really good group. I think they have a good chemistry. They get along well, but we haven't found that grit that every team needs, every good team needs, where you pull together and you just play for the group. We're not there yet. And
just play for the group. That's interesting. Who's not playing for the group? I would say probably that's Klay. Klay's been on some crazy selfish energy. All about himself. He wants to get his points. He wants to play. He doesn't want to come off the bench. He doesn't want to do anything that is sacrificial and beneficial for the team if it hurts him in some way. If it hurts his career, his money, and all this stuff. And it's a complicated situation because he's in a contract year. He's trying to get his final big payday or whatever. But simultaneously, that's costing the team. So maybe he's talking about Klay there. I mean, Kuminga is a problem too. Kuminga next year will be his 4th year. And he's going to want to get paid too. I don't think he belongs on this team. He needs to go to a different team. He's too inexperienced. He's too young. Young guys who are inexperienced and raw on defense don't get to be a part of a rotation of a championship caliber team. And that's what the Warriors have been doing with him. He's talented, don't get me wrong, but he's just not a Warriors type of player. A Warriors type of player is a guy, like Steve just said, is a guy with grit. Somebody who has fight and pride on the defensive end of the floor and shows up every single time. Potts does that. He already does that so much better than Kuminga. It's not even funny. Him and Trace, oh my God, like forget about it. It's not even close. Trace is worlds apart better than him. But that aside, this guy's talking about a lack of grit. You put out 3-guard lineup with Kuminga at the 4 and you talk about grit? You can't find grit? Gee, I wonder why. Maybe the players that you're putting on the floor at the same time are not capable of showing grit. Steph Curry at the 2. What kind of grit can he show at 6'2"? At age 36? Klay Thompson, his defense is cooked. What grit are you talking about? What grit are you looking for from him at POA? Look in the damn mirror, dude. You suck. Your game plan sucks. Your rotation sucks. Your combinations suck. Don't blame the players for a lack of grit. Blame yourself for putting out a bunch of guys who aren't capable of showing the grit that you're looking for, dummy. Let's look at the list of players that have grit. Trace Jackson has grit. Pods has grit. Andrew Wiggins has grit. GP2 has grit. These guys are not starting. They're not seeing the floor enough. Get a clue. But he won't. This is like his 10th year in the league. He's been coaching the same freaking team for how many years, and he still doesn't get it. That's why he needs to be out of here.
We're not there yet, and that's a problem. You know, we, like I said,
We're not there yet because you haven't played the right combinations, dummy. You had Trace Jackson sitting on the bench the whole freaking year. That in and of itself is a fireable offense when you can see what he could do. I shouldn't be able to recognize that better than you. That's why you're unfit for this job.
We got great guys, love every one of them, but until this team really connects in a way that is solely dedicated to winning each and every game, then we're going to be stuck in this place. So we need to get there.
Where do you think that shows? Where do you think that shows, like that lack of grit? I mean, because it's kind of an intangible, but where do you think that manifests?
You can just feel it. You can feel it. It is intangible, so it's difficult to describe, but you can feel when a team is connected, competing together.
That comes when you have players that are capable of doing that. There was a segment of the game where they played Steph Curry, Potts, Wiggins, Kuminga, and Trace together. Listen, man, there is a world of difference between Steph Curry, Potts, and Wiggins versus Steph Curry, Chris Paul, and Klay freaking Thompson. They leaned into a defensive leaning lineup in the fourth quarter, and they played better. Shocker. But guess what? You still finished the game with Chris Paul. You managed to sit Klay Thompson, which he threw a freaking tantrum about, by the way. Enough is enough. I think Klay Thompson, I'm ready to get off of him. He's gone, man. Mentally, he's gone. Steve Kerr's talking about unity, being connected, and care about winning above all else, and Klay is not on that energy. The Warriors need to move off of him. Forget re-signing him. They need to get him out of here before the deadline. Sorry, man. I will cherish the things that Klay Thompson has done in the past for the rest of my life. I mean, those championships don't happen without Klay Thompson in there. But once upon a time, he was a two-way player. He's no longer that. He's got to go. Enough is enough. Chris Paul, you got to go. You're still a great player. It's not because you're playing badly. It's because you and Steph Curry, the combination of that, it doesn't work. Remember when Monte Ellis did not want to play next to Steph Curry because he knew that they would be too small? This is the same situation. CP is smaller than Monte Ellis. You have a 39-year-old 6-foot guy and you have a 36-year-old 6'2" guy playing together at the same time. That's not going to work defensively. I mean, this is common sense. It's not going to work. Trade Chris Paul, trade Klay Thompson. These are distractions. These are guys that ruin the combinations that they could play. Klay Thompson is gatekeeping Moses Moody from playing. Moses Moody is a much better defender than Klay Thompson. And Potts is a much better defender, has more size, much better rebounder than Chris Paul. And the situation just got to change. The closing lineup is just too old. You can't win like this. And they've proven it all season long that they can't win like this. And Kuminga, too inexperienced. That's 3 guys. Chris Paul, Klay Thompson, Jonathan Kuminga. They got to go. Sorry, I know there are feelings involved, but feelings always get hurt in the business of NBA basketball. These guys are getting paid millions of dollars to do what they do. This is what they signed up for, and this is the nature of the business. You got to first and foremost figure out what fits and what doesn't, and we have certainly identified that at this point. You got too many point guards, you got too many wings, you don't have enough power forwards and bigger players that are capable of playing the power forward position, so go get a trade.
Together, everybody's energy is right. The difficult thing in the NBA, and this is one of the things I think about all the time as a coach. Every guy in that locker room has a unique set of circumstances, and every one of them is under tremendous pressure, to perform. If you're Steph Curry, you're under pressure to remain one of the great players in the world. If you're, Usman Garuba, you're trying to make it in this league as a two-way guy and elevate yourself and your career. And I could go down the list.
And they've needed Garuba all this time. Talking about the stretch four. This is a guy who can actually play the power forward position. If you put him next to Draymond, their defense will be more powerful. You have to worry about your defense. You have to worry about whether your defense works or not. He literally just said they scored. They didn't have any problem scoring, but they couldn't get any stops. Well, if you want to get stops at the bare minimum, you have to have a guy at the power forward position who's actually capable of playing it. You've been playing guys who are not capable of playing that position all season long.
Every single guy has a story, and I think about that all the time, and I care about each and every guy, and I want him to succeed, but I care most about the team winning. And the irony is that things always work out best for each individual player when they just lose themselves in the game and the team and commit to the quest, to the cause.
Okay, so Steve Kerr wants to win. He wants them to be connected. He wants them to play defense. So the intentions are there, but the decision making on his part is what's disallowing the Warriors from doing that. So he's unfit for this team. I'm telling you. The guy's been coaching for 10 years, and he still doesn't understand what combinations work defensively and what combinations don't work defensively. I think he proved that in the FIBA competition, like I said before. If you can't even medal bronze because you chose to play Mikal Bridges at the center spot and you learn nothing from that, it's hopeless. It's hopeless. He's not going to change. He doesn't get it. The small lineups don't work. The small lineups can still work if you have the right pieces that you're playing at the positions. But he's not doing it. And he doesn't realize it. He'll never realize it. He's got to go, man. He's got to go.
And all the great teams do that. They get there. We're not there.
I mean, simple to, I guess, ask, do you just feel like individual agendas are a problem right now?
All I said was we're not competing through the tough parts of the game, and there's an intangible, there's a feeling, there's a vibe where you fight, where everybody's energy is right, and we don't.
It's not just about feelings and vibes and everybody's energies are right. It's about the player's size and whether they can actually play the positions that you're putting them in. It's not just about feelings and vibes, man. It's about the capability and the skill sets and the size and the wingspans of the actual players. You dummy?
I don't have that right now.
You have a couple guys that have played a decade together, but do you feel like some of that has to do with familiarity? A lot of players not necessarily knowing how to play with each other yet?
Maybe there's a little bit of that. I mean, I think because we have a lot of guys who are capable of playing, as I said, I think, 13 guys who could all very easily be in the rotation. But you only play 9. I mean, tonight, 10. But Moses didn't get in the game tonight. He's been in the rotation most of the season. So we're mixing and matching. We're trying different things, and so it is harder to for individual players to find their rhythm. When you're changing lineups around and changing combinations, but we have to find something that clicks, and so far we haven't been able to do that. Thanks.
Oh my God, man. Every time this guy opens his mouth, he exposes himself. He is a charlatan. He has no capability of coaching NBA talent. He never has. He just had all the right pieces from the get-go when he came into the job. He walked into one of the greatest situations that any coach could have walked into. The second year in the league when he missed half of the season, Luke Walton took over, and he was 39-4 to begin that season. He was much better than Steve Kerr ever could be. Even when they got KD, they never sniffed a 39-4 start. He's been handed the keys to the greatest combination of players that you could imagine, and he still underachieved with the pieces that he had. And now there's some imperfections, there are some redundancies, and the guy is completely lost. You need a different guy for the job. Even I would do a better job than what this guy is doing. So if that's the case, he doesn't belong there anymore. You gotta recognize this soon enough. You cannot squander another year of Steph Curry, 35 going on 36, Because if you squander this year, then he will be 36 going on 37 the following year. The window of opportunity to win a championship is very small right now. You cannot squander this opportunity, and that is what you're going to do if you keep this guy for the remainder of the season. Let him go. Whew. Okay, listen, I'm normally not this kind of person. I'm actually almost never like this. I'm a very calm person. I'm a reasonable person. And believe it or not, I am a kind person. So I wouldn't be speaking this way unless there is somebody who's doing something this wrong, that I would be this passionate about it. So for anybody who's come this far, I truly appreciate you. Please understand the emotions behind this. I watch every single game and go through it every single night. I've put a lot of time into this, and it is very frustrating. I tune in because I love the game of basketball. I love Steph Curry as a player, and I'm tuning in to be entertained. But I cannot be entertained. I'm stressed by the complete and utter stupidity of the decisions that this guy has been making for years and years and years. The Warriors have been playing basically 500 basketball for like the last 5 years. Enough of this mediocrity. They have pieces that are too good for them to be playing this kind of basketball. Anyway, plenty of more content to come. Film breakdown part 2 of Trey Jackson-Davis compared to Looney and Saric and what he was able to do against the Blazers is coming out real soon. So stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching. If you like the content, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and turn on that notification bell because I will continue to provide you with some of the best NBA content in the world. Thanks for watching. Until next time.